Hey everybody out there, Chris here, and welcome to one of my first vlogs actually on Comic Frontline. And this was actually inspired by Mike Spiderslayer's vlog in celebration of our Zenescope Appreciation Week. And after watching Mike's video, I said to myself I had to actually make a vlog video myself talking about my introduction to Zenescope and why I love the company so much and all the comics that they bring out each and every week. And before I get into this video too far, I want to make a little bit of a little teaser right here. At the end of this video, there's going to be a minor announcement dealing with Zenescope Appreciation Week, and just a small one that's going to be leading into a gigantic one. It'll be a separate video, and that's going to be happening later on once we get all the details and the scheduling hammered out. So I'm not going to be giving any teaser or anything away except for the fact that there is going to be an announcement for Zenescope Appreciation Week, and Mike and I have a bunch of books also, hopefully, that we'll be getting soon, and we're going to be doing those. So this is actually one of our first videos that we're doing Frontline, but there will be others, like I said. But that's it for the announcement. Now let's get into the history. Now, I started collecting comics, as you guys know, in 1998 when Superman Forever came out. Zenescope Entertainment came out in 2005, I believe. At least that's what I was told. And unfortunately, my comic shop where I bought my books closed in 2003, 2004, right before I actually started my channel on YouTube, and way before I started my comic review. So I had to actually start buying my books through the internet, MidtownComics.com. We all know how much fun I've been having with them lately. Beside the point, back in the day, if I saw a cover that would interest me, I would, if I'm in the comic shop, they were never bagged or boarded. You could take them right off the wall, look through them, you didn't like it, you put it back, you did, you put it on the desk, and you bought it. So, I was always one of those people. I always bought Superman, but once about 2001 started coming around, that's when I started reaching into a couple of other books here, there, and everywhere. Eventually that would stop due to money issues, but for the time I was. And I remember, and once I went to Midtown Comics, that stopped. And for independent companies, for a while back then, there weren't as many previews as there are now. Or maybe there weren't, I just couldn't find them. But beside the point, I remember seeing Grim Fairy Tales Presents Oz, and it had Dorothy on the cover, but it wasn't Oz. Now, Zenescope Entertainment is known to take fairy tales like Oz, Neverland, and Alice in Wonderland, and it's for mature audiences. It's not like that kid stuff you watch on Disney, or that kid stuff you saw, you know, in the cartoons, or that movie you saw way back in the day, The Wizard of Oz. This is stuff that is reimagined, and it's a completely, it's characters we know, but put in completely different situations, all in one universe. In one universe, divided into realms. And I remember seeing that cover and going, that book looks interesting. I didn't know why, but that's the cover actually to the trade paperback also. And I remember looking at that cover and I'm like, that looks interesting. I would really like to give that a shot. And the one thing Zenescope was known for, and is still known for, is their cheesecake covers. We all know that they have the sexy covers, and there are people out there that look at a cover like, well, I don't want to give it away yet, but they'll look at a cover with a woman on it, and it's all, you know, out there, and go, why? The thing with Zenescope is, and this is at least my opinion on them, they chose, and still choose, because these are optional covers now, because they have covers A, B, and C for almost, and D sometimes, for almost all of their books, so you can get any type of cover you want. But back then, they treated a cover like a cover. I remember a lot of comics actually had covers that would tease stuff that happened in the book. Some covers would be completely action-packed. You'd buy it thinking that, well, this has to be in the book, and guess what? It wasn't. Not at all. So Zenescope didn't waste their time with their covers promoting stuff on the inside, so they just made a cover. And the stuff on the inside was very, very different. It was not as cheesecake as the covers were. It was actually original, amazing stuff. And I remember Godstorm actually with well, I don't want to get into that yet. So this is before I started reading Zenescope, and I remember looking at a few covers, and once again, back then, covers are covers. It's what's on the inside that matters. You can have the best cover in the world, you can win an award for it, but was the comic worth it? Years later, I remember we started Dark Avenger Inc., and we actually started talking with Zenescope, and we started getting books. And I remember the first set of books we got were Grim Fairy Tales, somewhere in the 80s. It was when Sela was in jail, and by the way, I would not recommend that as a jumping on point, because I was lost for a bit, and I'll explain how I got unlost. We got Irresistible #1, and Grim Fairy Tales, Myths and Legends. I believe Hansel and Gretel's story arc was starting. And I remember after reading Grim Fairy Tales, I was lost, and I went to Mike, and it's just like he said on his blog. He couldn't stop saying good things about Zenescope Entertainment and their books, and he explained to me everything that went on in Grim Fairy Tales up until that point, or basically he gave me the outline about Sela Mathers, what the whole story's about, and he left stuff out. You know, there were little pieces he left out for me to find out on my own through reading, and also whatever blank spaces there were, like with previous story arcs, it was all mentioned right in the beginning of the books. And that's another thing I love about the Zenescope books. If you grab Grim Fairy Tales and you start off in a story arc, whatever story arc it is, and that's why, even though I say the jail part, the jail story arc wasn't a good one to jump in on, in the very beginning of the book, it gives you a synopsis not only of the entire universe from the very beginning to now, but it also gives you a rundown of what's happened previously in the series. Not just previously in the last issue and story arc before it. And that was a humongous plus also, because a book that'll tell you, hey look, if this is your first time reading, this is what's gone on so far, so you're caught up. That automatically. I remember reviewing the books, no book went underneath a 3.5 to 4 star book for me. But that was the first week. Then the second week came, and there was a bunch of books that came out. I believe that was when Myths and Legends came out. And then there was an issue 0. Other than Irresistible, there was no book that was at a #1 at the moment. For me to feel like, okay, I'm starting the series off from the very beginning. Then the issue 0 came, and what got me first was the title, what got me second was the cover, and what got me third were the characters. Godstorm, Zeus on the cover, Zeus as one of the main characters and a focal point of the series. And I remember reading issue 0, and right there, by the end of that issue, I had enjoyed everything else I read from Zenescope, and I said, okay, this is going to be a good company, I'm going to enjoy the books. After reading Godstorm, issue 0, that was the foundation to what would soon become a humongous love for the Zenescope line and all the books that would follow after it. Godstorm was an amazing series. I remember reading it from issue 0 all the way through to the end, and it was really good. And then the characters had moved into the main universe at some point. They started doing Unleashed. There was Robin Hood, which was introduced, and I know I fell in love with the character, that Mike fell in love with the character, and I remember at the time Jay was getting into Robin Hood, and Mike Spider Slayer was loving Robin Hood. We all fell in love with Robin Hood. Godstorm was something I would always push. And then I remember going, I wonder if Zenescope has a YouTube channel. I always say that because I'm a huge fan of, back then, I used to really be on YouTube. Like, I'm always on YouTube. But I'm always a huge fan of companies that are on YouTube and that do stuff, on YouTube. And to my surprise, Zenescope was on YouTube and there were advertisements, but the one thing that caught me, and one day I hope they revisit, was they had an original series and have it still on their YouTube channel. And that was another thing that solidified my enjoyment of Zenescope. I watched the whole thing from the first episode all the way to the last, and unfortunately they haven't done it in a while. But again, that's another factor towards a company that's like, hey, we understand we do books, but here's some extra stuff that we're doing too. That was a humongous plus. And then came New York Comic Con 2000, 2012. We went, it was me and Michael. I remember Cindy had just moved here, but Mike and I had gone. We bought tickets. We didn't go as press the first New York Comic Con. We bought tickets for Saturday. We were going to go just Saturday. And we went to New York Comic Con. We went around, I remember. And then we came to the Zenescope booth. And I remembered Godstorm and Robin Hood. They were talking about Robin Hood because Robin Hood was fresh. And all the other stuff that was going to be coming out, like Unleashed and a bunch of things. And I remember the person we met, well, first we met Steve Haberman, who was the PR person at the time for Zenescope Entertainment. And then he introduced us to the man who wrote Godstorm and Robin Hood, Patrick Shan. And I remember when I did my review for Godstorm issue 0, he had commented the video. And we went there, we interviewed him, and right there and right then, pre-recorded, pre-interview, post-interview, number one, as a writer and as a person, I respected and I loved Patrick Shan's work from reading it, just reading it before meeting him. After meeting the person who did the work and who still to this day not only is doing the work right now, but he's doing, believe me guys, he is doing tons of stuff with Zenescope right now. And I said way back when Godstorm issue 0 came out that Zenescope needed to hold on to Patrick Shan. They needed him, and they needed to give him books. And what happened was, all this time throughout the year, he had done more books, more stuff. Then the announcement came that he was moved up to an executive position. And it was the best time, and we were all very happy to hear it on Dark Avenger Inc. at the time. We celebrated, actually. And in all that time, my love for the company had grown. And by the way, Godstorm issue 0, that New York Comic Con, I actually got Godstorm issue 0 physical copy. And it actually was signed by Patrick Shan. Mike got Robin Hood issue number 1, and that was signed by Pat as well. And he was just an amazing guy. And again, when it comes to conventions, if Zenescope has a booth, you don't have to be members of the press. If you want to know more about their books, or if you want to talk to their writers, they are a very open booth. They're a very open company, and they are really, really nice people. I remember when we went this past year in 2013, I remember Pat was there. We interviewed him again. I remember seeing Raven Gregory, but I think he was leaving the booth at the moment. Ralph Tedesco was there both times. I remember in 2012 he was here, there, and everywhere. He was back and forth and back and forth. I don't know if he was doing other things. But in 2013, I believe I saw him for a total of about maybe 5 minutes. And then he disappeared again. So maybe it was just me or where we were at the time. But they are really nice people. And that's another important thing I have to say about a company is you need 3 things. You need good stories, you need good people, and you need good art. This company, I've never had a complaint about their art, never had a complaint about their stories, and everyone I've talked to from Zenescope, starting with Patrick Shan all the way down to everybody else that I've had the pleasure of talking to, even if it was just in passing, was amazing. And that was Godstorm issue 0 and 1 were the foundation. Comic-Con, the first time, were the pillars. And then everything that happened from New York Comic-Con 2012 through to New York Comic-Con 2013 was the rest of the building that built the foundation to something that, to this day, I am proud to say I've read almost every single book that's come out of Zenescope. If Mike read it, sometimes I would skip it if I had like a humongous pile of books and I come back to it later. But I am proud to say that I've read 90% of the stuff that's come out of Zenescope. And Mike and I have actually a whole show at the end of the month, a Zenescope recap show that we do on my channel now. And we actually sometimes, for example with Grim Fairy Tales 2004 Annual, we sometimes purposely get the cheesecake covers. We don't always do it, like with Age of Darkness, Grim Fairy Tales, The Dark One one-shot. We don't always do it, but sometimes to prove a point we do it. This is the cover. However, the story on the inside of this book is nothing I want to get a good, like the cover. The story is amazing. The cover is just what it's called, a cover. The inside is where the meat and the amazing stuff is. From artwork to story to everything. Don't, as they say, judge a book by its cover. The saying holds true, especially for Zenescope. See, we got these books. Mike got Robin Hood Legend, issue number 3. These are the books we got this week. You cannot judge Zenescope's books by their covers, but now you can because there's like 4 different covers, so you can pick whatever you want. I mean, see? But beside the point, the stories on the inside of those covers are spectacular. So anybody out there, I would highly recommend, put aside the cover, buy the book. Now there are cover A, B, C, D, E, F, and G's. Especially when there's conventions. There's G's, H's, and I's. Sometimes J's. Pick up a Zenescope book. Whether it be Grim Fairy Tales, which is going spectacular, and they're about to hit their 100th issue in the next couple of months. Godstorm just started their 2nd volume, and it's already going amazing. And you just saw the main character of Godstorm Volume 2, Hercules Payne. Age of Darkness has been spectacular. So far, Zenescope has given us Age of Unleashed, Age of Darkness, and other stuff is on the way. And it's all amazing. Now, everybody knows that events sometimes get taken too far. I have to applaud Zenescope's, oh God, I had the word and then it just flew away. The way they're executing their events. One event at a time, one event leading into another event, and it's all in one straight line, and you don't have to read all the tie-ins to get the main story. If you just want to read Grim Fairy Tales, you can read just Grim Fairy Tales. If you're a fan of just Godstorm, you can read Godstorm. The one-shots like this, yes, it does say Age of Darkness Realm Fall Part 1, but at the same time, this is part of the Realm Fall series then. If you're not getting Realm Fall, you don't need this then. However, if you're reading Robin Hood, which is right here, she does appear in this book, briefly. But do you need to get that book because it has Robin Hood here in it? Not at all. This story actually is very self-contained. It's taking place on its own in its own little corner of the Zenescope universe right now. Whereas like the dark one is an Age of Darkness tie-in, which is what we're in right now and where issue 100 is leading into. You don't have to buy everything, but I promise you this. You'll want to when you start reading. Mike and I proudly buy every single story that is coming out of Zenescope right now. Whatever comes out on their list, we've been getting. For example, and I love how they actually did this now, there is a checklist right at the very back of the book. We are now in the month of May. Warlord of Oz issue number 1 is coming out. The Dark One, Age of Darkness, which is what I'm holding in my hand. Grim Fairy Tales 97. Grim Fairy Tales Annual 2014, which is over there, the annual. Neverland, Age of Darkness, issue number 3. We started from issue number 1. Wonderland Clash of Queens, issue 4 of 5, which is going really well. Wonderland Asylum, issue 5 of 5. I believe we missed the first 2 issues, but Michael jumped on anyway, and he caught up thanks to the wonderful beginnings at the beginning of the book. Now, this is a one-shot, so it only gives you a beginning of the universe, but in other books it does give you a rundown of what's been going on. Hellsing, which is another good one. Wonderland, issue 23, which is an ongoing series. Hercules Payne, issue 2. Robin Hood Legend, number 3. Ascension, which is another really good book with The Being in it, issue 4 or 5. And then they give you the trade paperbacks, Barmaid and Code Red. Now, Mike and I got issue 1 through 5 in back orders, backlist, or yeah, I think they're called back order. We got the first 5 issues, the whole 5 issues, so we won't be getting that. So maybe we'll be getting Barmaid's trade paperback because we missed out on that story arc. We'll see. But again, all the books I just mentioned are all books we're getting. Why? Because we have to? No. Because we're reviewers? No, I mean, there are other people on Comic Frontline, and Mike Spireslayer actually reviewed the annual today. Why do we buy it? Because we love the company. The company, the universe, the characters, and the writers who write them, who put their heart and soul into their books for the readers, do such an amazing job that you want to read more. And if you're on a tight budget, yes, you don't have to buy everything. You don't. Pick the books that sound the best or the ones you want to try out and try them. Cindy read Jungle Book, both volumes, and enjoyed them. Personally, I like everything I've been reading from Zenescope right now. The only books that Mike's reading that I'm not reading is Wonderland Asylum, Wonderland, and I think that's about it. I've even started reading Clash of Queens now, so... No, I'm reading Robin Hood, Mike. You don't have to say... I read Robin Hood also, I just don't review it. Some books we split to review. But guys, I cannot recommend, we've been doing it for so long, from Dark Avengering all the way to now, we've been recommending you guys check out something from Zenescope. It's not because we get their books, it's not because we've worked with them, we've interviewed them. It's because they are a spectacular company. They have very solid work when it comes to stories and art, and they are amazing people through their books and through the way they run their universe and company, and through the way they communicate with the readers and the people who actually have opinions for their work. All of that is why we love Zenescope and why we praise Patrick Chan. I love all the stuff Patrick... Anything that has Patrick Chan's name on it, I've read at least 5 times. Guilty. I've read it at least... Not this issue. This issue was signed. This issue is in a sealed bag and it'll never come out again. But the unsigned one, 5 times over. Digitally, physical copy, everything. There are a lot of amazing writers that I've since started reading through Patrick Chan come to love their writing as well. Raven Gregory, who's done several books. I want to know, does he... Yeah, the dark one. Raven Gregory's name is right there. I want to see if he's done either one of these, so I can be right. Nope. But then you got like Ralph Tedesco, who actually was writing this book. Those are some of the names I mentioned before. Amazing people, an amazing company, and all around just awesome. And I remember last year when there was that video gaming donation going on, they were also involved in that. They had a comic book, a special cover, and the money from that obviously went to the foundation. And they actually played video games for 24 hours. I remember watching them play several video games, and it was fun watching that as well. I believe it was Steve Haberman at the time. They're just an amazing company. Whether they don't take themselves too seriously, because they've got that YouTube series that they've done, and I don't know who wrote it. It probably is in the credits, and I'm completely stupid and don't remember. But that was an awesome series, coming from somebody who writes several series on YouTube. Hats off, that was an amazing series that they did on YouTube. Books, the donations, the stuff that they've done, the donations that they've done, just an amazing company, and I'm proud to say that I am a loyal reader, and I love reviewing their work. Now for the announcement for Zenescope Appreciation Week. Actually, before I get into the announcement, another thing is, jumping on wise, I forgot, I cut myself off. You can jump on to any one of the books that are miniseries that are #1s. And even if you miss out, there are tons of new miniseries that are coming out each and every month. This is why I'm very glad that I remember 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, I actually went to Mike. I remember saying, we all love Zenescope so much, all of us, and we all praise Patrick Chan's work, and we all really like them so much. Why don't we do a week where we actually celebrate Zenescope Entertainment? And I remember his first message back to me was, that's amazing, let's do it. And then I remember it was Brandt who said that the annual came out the week of the 14th. So I said, let's do it the week of the 12th through the 16th. And this is leading into the announcement. And everybody was in agreement. We all came up with, unfortunately, I came up with this idea and we executed it within about 2 weeks. So, next time we'll have we're going to start setting up months in advance. And this is going to be a yearly thing. We are going to be doing this a week in May every year. This is the first annual. And because it was of such short notice, and we do have some major stuff coming next week, we've decided to extend Zenescope Appreciation Week to 2 weeks this time for the first annual celebration. So it is not ending today on the 16th. It will be ending next week on whatever number date next Friday is. I know Wednesday the 21st, 22nd, 23rd. It will be ending next week on the 23rd. So you could expect more reviews, more topic videos, more stuff coming out of both Comic Frontline and comic related, might I add. And there will be, like I said, a announcement video sometime soon, or sometime in the beginning of next week, pertaining to Zenescope Entertainment and something really big that's going to be, let's just say, monumentous, and leave it at that. So thank you guys so much for sitting here and listening to me babble on for about a good 28 minutes already. With that, guys, I cannot recommend Zenescope Entertainment enough. You can go on their website right now. They're having a humongous sale until the end of May. All their issues from 3 months back and further back, 3 months and older, are only $1. This is your chance to give them a shot. Right there. Buy a couple of issues and check them out. So until next time, everybody, don't forget to check out Comic Related, Comic Frontline, and Zone4Podcast.com. Together we are your #1 source for comic related news, reviews, and a whole bunch more. And until then, everybody, take care, keep reading, keep collecting, and I'll see you guys really soon in the next video. Take care, everybody.